Hey. Let me see. Are you guys able to hear? Test, test. Let me see what's going on here. Test, test, test. All right, let me see who's in here. Who figured it out? I'm telling people to click my icon because this. Hey, boo. Something's wrong with the first live. How do I sound? Do I sound okay? I'm testing all this stuff out. Do I sound okay? Because what happened is that link, the original link, it's not working. It's just like stuck in perpetuality. So I don't know what's going on with that. Okay, you can hear me good? Okay, perfect. Let me tell, click my channel icon. Mm. Well, thank y'all for being here. Okay, I'm just waiting here. I'm trying to get the people from over there to over here, to over to this side. Let me see if I can do it. Maybe because it's my first time ever going live. It's saying I'm not connected, this and that. Let's see if this works. All right, cool. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. So I'm not even going to try to put all that stuff out there. There's just something wrong with that first live. I guess because it's like my first ever one that it's just acting funny. It's like stuck on having me go live through the mobile. And I want it here on my laptop because I'm sitting here. So I think this would be so much easier for me and a better camera, better sound, since I don't have like a microphone, well, I do, I have microphones, but I'm not connecting those. So let me just see if anybody else is stuck over there or is still over there rather. Okay. All right, that's it. I'm not gonna send no more messages about it. Okay. Well, this is what it is. I was freaking out for a minute and I was just like, oh my gosh, it's not gonna happen. What's going on? But I'm glad that you guys are here. Somebody's actually going to join us in a little bit. She is actually at an epilepsy foundation meeting right now. She is one of my good sister friends that has epilepsy, and she would like to join in on the conversation because she feels like what she goes through with her epilepsy. She has grand mal seizures, and she ends up having like these little deaths, that happen. And just before we get started, I want y'all to know this is not a morbid thing at all. This is so not a morbid conversation. This isn't like something dark or anything like that because I'm not into anything like that. But I had a beautiful, beautiful conversation with hey guys, I had a beautiful conversation with my sensei, my kyomonim. I always have a hard time with that. My kyomonim, which is basically a female Buddhist sensei, and she guides us, in this course of learning. And she taught us this wonderful lesson on the Buddhist instructions for dying, or When We Shed This Human Skin. That's literally the title of it. And it was the most beautiful thing I think I had ever come into contact with or ever learned. And I really wanted to share it because I was so intrigued by it. I said, this is something that everybody needs to know. I feel like we need to really share this. It's so beautiful. Yes, welcome, Julia. It was such a beautiful lesson, and the way that it's told was so interesting to me. And then what's so funny is that when I was in the middle of learning this lesson, I saw that there's this show that comes on. Did y'all see this show? The show is called "This Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning." If you get a chance, watch that show. It's so good. If you get a chance, watch that show. It comes on. Let me see if I could find it. It's called "This Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning." Have y'all heard that? Let's see. If you get a chance, go and watch that show. It is so good. Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. And can I present to you guys? That would be great if I could just present it to you. Pop out dashboard. No. I think I have to designate that I'm going to do that before. This is my first ever live stream. This is the first thing. Yeah, okay. So it's called this gentle art of Swedish death cleaning. The show just came out, but apparently this is a practice that they do in Sweden or in some other Norwegian countries often, where basically the person after the age of 40 or 50, they start cleaning out their home as if somebody is coming to their house after a funeral. So they start cleaning, they start getting the house together, they start doing all of that so that way the loved ones don't have to do it. And I think is the most beautiful, compassionate thing that I've ever heard of, where the person starts cleaning their stuff out. So like anything that needs to go, they start cleaning their closets out so the family doesn't have to do it. The person is still alive, they're not sick, there's nothing wrong with them. There's no illness. They're just doing this like a spring cleaning, but they're keeping in mind the people who would have to clean up after them after they die. So they're thinking about their kids. Like, is there anything embarrassing in here that needs to be put away somewhere or cleaned up or given away? They're thinking about, their clothing. What should happen to all this clothing and all of that. So when I saw that show, I thought about the lessons that my Kyomonim taught me about getting ready to shed this skin and why we should practice every single night. And I remember the first time she mentioned it, she said that it should go on every single night, and I was just like, that sounds crazy. That sounds so morbid. That sounds horrible. What do you mean this should go on every night? And she had us think about, how our feelings were around the death of a family member, or around just deaths and funerals in general. So what was that like in y'all's family? How was that? How was like, and we're getting that stuff out the way. Like I said, this is not a morbid conversation at all. What's that? Parents passed. There was so much, yeah, it's so much to deal with, right? It's so much. So that's kind of what we're talking about. But that's like the Norwegian part of it. And then there's this beautiful Asian part of it as well. And I'm sure in other cultures, there's something like this as well. I just haven't been exposed to it. But yeah, when somebody passes away, you think about all this stuff. And this isn't even a live about, how to prepare your will and all that stuff. Obviously you should have that as well, but think about all the stuff that people around you will have to care for. Think about all your books, all your clothes. Think about, what they're going to do with your pets. Anything could happen. She mentioned, and she's a young woman, this is a woman that's like in her early 40s or late 30s, something like that, and she mentioned, about keeping death in your front pocket. And she mentioned about, keeping this thing next to you and close to you, because you could walk out the house and a tree could fall on you, or you could be in a car accident, or, you could have a bad reaction to a medication or something like that. Anything could happen. Sorry, the dog's thing is going off. Anything could happen, and nothing is prepared. So she said, think about it like that when I say that you should practice every single night. So there's going to be people in and out. So think about that when you think about practicing every single night, that anything can happen at any time. So I'm going to get into it, and I'm also going to tell you like the dangers of not relinquishing some of that stuff before you go, because it was that part was a little bit scary. What happens, when you still have these connections still here in this realm, and what could happen to you and to your family if you don't take care of that. So I'm going to get into that stuff. But how was it looked at in your family? How was death just viewed in your family? Think about it. Was it something taboo to talk about? Or was it something where everybody discussed it? Or did y'all celebrate deaths? Did y'all wear white to funerals? Did you wear black? Did you go visit your family at cemeteries? Where you grew up, was your cemetery tucked away somewhere across town behind a mountain, or was it right there in the center of town? I remember going, I mean, just I would say a lot of Caribbean countries. I went to a lot of Caribbean countries where the cemetery is located right there in the middle of town, like on display. When I first saw that, I thought that was kind of weird and creepy. But then I thought about that, how the kids go out there and clean off the headstones every so often. They make like a little trip out of it. And then I learned that in Norway that they do the same thing, and that other countries around the world they do the same thing as well. So I thought that was really, really beautiful. And that took kind of the creepiness out of death, right? It takes like the creepiness out of it when it's right next to you and is close to you. It's not such a scary thing. So I'll just start. I'll say that in my family, in my life, it wasn't a creepy thing to talk about. It wasn't like a taboo thing to talk about at all, especially if somebody was ill. We knew that they were ill and that they were going to pass. We talked about it, we discussed it, and we tried to have that person discuss things that needed to get done, you know, for um, for preparation. It wasn't really a scary thing at all. So it wasn't something that was like taboo. We couldn't talk about that. I don't know how it was with y'all, but it just wasn't like that with us. Sometimes people wore white to the funeral, sometimes they wore black. Sometimes it was a celebration, sometimes it was a grieving ceremony. It just depended on where it was. It just depended on who it was and the circumstances surrounding. If it was somebody older that had been suffering, obviously it would be more of a celebration because they weren't sick anymore, they weren't in pain anymore, right? So I'm sure that's probably what it was. If you come from like a Black American family, or even if you come from a Caribbean family, it's probably was something to be celebrated if they were older and they had their life they behind them, and it was all good. It was something that's natural part of life, right? What's this vibe up? Most people don't like to discuss it because the finality of it, right? Or the perceived finality of it, because it's not at all. I'm gonna tell you that right now. It's not at all. This is just one realm. But yeah, it's viewed as another phase of life if you believe in reincarnation. Exactly. Then you're not as afraid, right? I feel like I've never had family talk about it. We hear about others who passed and was like, "Oh, I don't know why they were ill." Yeah, because people keep things secret. They keep things hidden. They don't tell people. So you can have that situation as well where people are not like really talking about it like that. So I think that is also, a big part of it. So I think that the guiding principle that we're leading with here is that you do kind of have to have a belief in reincarnation in order to take some of the fear out. So before I even get into the list of the things to do, then we have to kind of operate from this guiding principle and accepted thing here. Like the first step is that, okay, we are moving from a place of we believe in reincarnation. We believe that you've lived many lives before and that there's going to be a whole bunch of other lives after. So I think that's the first part of it. We got that out the way. Good. We can move on. We know that when you pass in this, we shed this skin, we take this human body off, that this is not the end. That's not the finality of it. I think that the fear is more around like, well, what comes next? Right? If you ever been in a philosophy class, then you have these discussions like you can imagine yourself up in space, you can imagine yourself under the ocean, you can imagine yourself on top of a mountain or below the mountain or even in a volcano, but you can't imagine yourself not being here. Right? Who said that? Was that Descartes? I can't remember. Was that Descartes, the philosopher? You can't really imagine yourself not being here. So I think that's more of the fear is like, well, how is it going to happen? Am I going to suffer? Am I going to be in pain? How exactly is it going to happen? And then what's going to happen to me after? So I think that's the scary part. That's the morbid part that you think about. So the instructions that I'm talking about here is coming from a book called Getting Familiar with Death by Yi Chung Han, and it's one of the most interesting things that I've ever read as a student. It's one of the most beautiful things that I've ever read as a student, and I just wanted to share some of those lessons with all of you guys. I love these conversations. Welcome, and I'll introduce you to the weird part of myself because I really wanted to share this part and to talk about things that I want to talk about. This is what it is, right? This is going to be these weird conversations like this because this is stuff I want to talk about. You become one with the all. You are one with the all. You are one with the all right now. You're one with the all right now. You literally are one with the all right now. It's all right here. Right? I think if you believe in like that there's a heaven, that there's a place, this physical place called heaven or hell, that's also kind of a scary concept too, right? If you believe in like this physical place, like we're gonna get into a bus after everybody goes and we're gonna, there's some people going on that bus going to heaven, and then there's other people going down there on that bus to hell. That's something a little bit different. We can get into that if you want to. We can get into the Buddhist six layers of reality, or the six realms of reality if you want to, but that's a whole other thing. So before I even tell you the different steps, I'm going to read the story directly from the book. It's like 2 pages, like two small pages. Okay. And I'm going to see if I can share it. I don't know if I can share it. If not, but this story, like, I was like, whoa, this is some really, really heavy stuff here. It was on page 22. And I'll put the name of it. Oh, you know what? Let me put the name of it right here in the chat. The name of it, Getting Familiar. I'm going to read this story to you. And then you're going to tell me if this stuff rings true, how somebody's spirit that's still attached here in this realm could wreak havoc in your life or your family's life. So, this is regarding a sibling that passed away that came back in many forms and just totally destroyed the family's finances, their home life, everything, because the family was still attached to them and because they were still attached to things here as well. So, we're going to talk about attachment. But I'm writing the name of this. I'm typing the name and putting this into the chat box. Okay. Getting familiar with death. If you can pick this book up, the author is Yeech. Make sure I got it right. Yichang Chen. Okay. Okay, there it is. So if you want to find that book right there. And I'm reading specifically from page 22. That's The Moon Rises in Empty Space. We don't want that. We want Getting Familiar. Okay, here it is. All right, now just listen to this. This is wild. Now, mind you, they read and they write in like some of it is a little bit old English, but I'm gonna do my best for you here. It's in English, but it's translated from Korean. Okay, so they're talking about the attachment and what happened to this family that was part of the Won Buddhist church that these people went to. Okay, the members of his family are descendants of aristocrats. Among the 7 siblings, the eldest son went to Japan to study while Korea was under Japanese control. He studied socialism with his friends in Japan and became involved in socialist activities after Korea was liberated from Japan. He had to serve jail time for a while because of these activities. As soon as he was released, the Yosu Sunchan or guerrilla war broke out. The government was determined to eliminate the last of the leftists. The family had to leave their hometown and hide in a town where they were unknown. They bought a house and some fields. One of the villagers demanded their fields, threatening to reveal that they were leftists. One of the villagers demanded their fields. Okay. The family had no choice but to give up the fields. The family had nothing to live on. The members of the family all scattered. The eldest was unable to get a proper job because of his involvement with socialism and became a mine worker. He hated South Korean society because of the ideology that it supported. He was angry at society. Listen to this. Now, his anger was a huge factor. He was angry at society because he had lost his assets and his family and had lost the means to survive. He had to suffer from enormous physical pain because his body was not used to manual labor. In addition to this, he had to put up with his hunger. His heart was burning with anger. Eventually, he was killed when the mine collapsed. So, hey, everybody. Eventually, he was killed when the mine collapsed. I'm reading a story right now about a guy who was so attached to his emotions and to his things on earth that his spirit ended up wreaking havoc on the family. It seemed only rightful that those who took his assets from him should be punished and those who gave him a hard time should suffer. However, even before that happened, he himself was killed. His hatred, rancor, and burning vengeance, so all that anger and rage, rancor is like rage. His hatred, rancor, and burning vengeance constituted his karma. And as soon as he died, he received his retribution as a poisonous snake and centipede. So his anger actually transformed him into a poisonous snake and a centipede. So he split off into the animal realm and the animal kingdom. So I'm not going to get into a whole Buddhist study class. I'm not getting into all of that. Telling you about how human beings can be reincarnated into animal form, but your anger is a being, right? Your anger is a being, and you that can become animals, right? And it still is here doing work on your behalf on earth. That's a whole other science. And like I said, if you want me to get into that, I will, but I don't feel like getting into it right now. Not that he was reborn as such, but that he received the energy of those beings. He was a decent and handsome man when alive. That he now received the spirit of a snake and centipede is not even unthinkable. When a situation ends like this, the soul loses will and reason. It does not know how to handle the situation. Like an arrow, the dead soul came back to his house and began to disturb his brothers and sisters, whom he loved so much when alive. The snake centipede spirit first entered into the body of his sister and stayed in her throat, causing a stroke and heart disease. The sister, who was a Wan Buddhist, had no idea what was happening in her body or with the dead soul and provided a guidance ceremony for her dead brother. Right? So, what would they say about something like that? Guidance ceremony, they're burning sage, they're burning candles, they're doing all of that type of stuff. For some reason, however, she felt the guidance did not work. The sister chanted the vows to the unitary circle for 15 days. The power of her chanting pushed the spirit outside, but now the spirit approached the sister's ear, causing ringing in her ear. The spirit implanted cancer and hepatitis into the sister. She could not endure this barrage of diseases and broke down. The disease soon became critical and she died in severe pain. The spirit's younger brother died from briquette gas poisoning. Another sister died. Remember, there were 7 siblings, right? Another sister died while delivering a child. The dead soul's 3 children lost their lives all at once. Another sister suffered from heart and stomach pain caused by the attack of a hot and bitter spirit. Remember, this was back in the day where people did die a lot in these kind of weird, kind of crazy ways like that. Another sister suffered from heart and stomach pain caused by the attack of a hot and bitter spirit. Her entire body began to swell. She could not walk because of the pain in her foot. Her consciousness became dim and she began to lose her memory. There did not seem to be any possibility for her survival. However, she felt responsibilities. She had to protect her youngest brother and his wife, who were yet to receive the attack of the dead soul. Now, again, this is some of it may be exaggerated, but let me just finish this really quick and then we're gonna get into the whole list. She also felt excuse me, 5 lives were dependent on her. She also felt a duty to save her dead brother's soul, which was harming the living. She was determined to risk her life and began a diligent devotion. She told me that she cried many times because of the pain in her chest. She tried whatever methods that came to her mind. In the Buddhist tradition, chanting, reading, burning, or eating the flower garland scripture, which is just some Buddhist scripture in a book, is used as one way of eliminating a snake. That helped to relax her somewhat. However, it did not seem to completely eliminate the power of karma. She wore undergarments in which the doctrinal chart of the Wan Buddhism was written down 8 times. It's a lot. It's the most. They're doing the most here. She always carried wrapped protective sands, gradually increasing the amount. Day and night, she chanted the vows to the unitary circle, the mantra of the clean and clear mind, and the flower garland scripture. She felt their effects and continued to do so for 40 months. That's how deeply connected this guy's spirit was here. Julia, what'd you say? Now I practice African traditional perspective, view on death and dying, where ancestor veneration is the focus. We were white as opposed to black and set up altars of upliftment. Yeah, yeah, definitely. What is this here? Share. I could not get you the link to join. It wasn't giving me an option to let anybody join. That's me and my own non-technologically savvy self. I'm gonna try to figure out before we get on. So just please just stay on because I want y'all's perspective here. Thank you for joining. The color of the poisonous spirit of the snake and centipede, that is reddish, blue, and dark color in the sister's body, now became lighter. The sister thought that one more year's devotion would be sufficient to save her brother's soul. Even today, her devotion to guide the dead continues. The sister said that she chanted Buddhist teachings for 50,000 hours continuously, of course, over 4 years. Only then could she see that her karma was being eliminated. She felt comfortable both mentally and physically, and only then could she become convinced of the Buddhist teaching of causation. That's just karma, right? When a dead soul receives the consequences of his previous behavior by receiving a certain physical form, i.e., being born as a snake or centipede, the bad karma will disappear when the time is up. But when karma is very severe, one will receive it in the form of a spirit. Without such a devoted effort for eliminating the karma comparable to what the sister did for her brother's dead soul, the dead will not have a chance to be liberated from the chain of transmigration and increase the bad karma each cycle. In such situation, a guidance ceremony will not have an immediate effect. The sister said that she gave the guidance ceremony 200 times. So she did it over and over and over again. And however, this was not enough to eliminate the bad karma accumulated in her brother's soul. So eventually, I'm not going to read anymore. Eventually, they finally got it out. She did it. It's another page or so. She finally got that spirit out of her house and out of her family. So think about it like this: even if it is an exagger, even if some of it is exaggerated, think about how somebody passes away. All of a sudden, some horrible things happen to the family or happen to you. So just go. I mean, you can think about that. Sometimes beautiful, wonderful things happen because of all the great karma that the person has accumulated in your life. This can even be an animal as well. So if you took excellent care of a pet, if you help guide that pet up to the next level in the next life or from their realm where they are, they can help you as well. And I've seen this, I've actually witnessed this with my own eyes, through my ex-husband's mother's cat, who really, really blessed this woman after that cat's passing. She took care of the cat for 20 years, 19 years. And some amazing, extraordinary things happened to her after that. And it was clearly, this was 100% in relation to how well she took care of that cat and waited on that cat hand and foot. But anyway, so I say all that to say that it was the attachment, this attachment that he had, and those attachments were his rancor, his rage, his anger. He had such an anger towards what that army had done to him and to him and his people, right? Remember, he served in that army and that military. He had vengeance. He had rage. He was so angry. He was holding on to that. He hadn't forgiven. And so all of that manifested in animal and insect form because those are lower spirits and lower manifestations. Because those energies are coming from such a lower place, lower thought patterns, lower energies and vibrations, they have manifested as these stinging creatures, these biting creatures, and things like that. These creatures that slither around on their bellies, right? And so this is one of the main principles of these instructions is letting go of these attachments. So let's think about the attachments that could be. Some of these are anger, these are vengeance, these are rage, whatever type of rage that you have towards somebody. I don't know why that does that. I have to figure the whole lighting situation out in here. I gotta figure this thing out for myself. If anybody has any tips about managing YouTube lives, excuse me, then please share them with me because, yeah. Anyway, so my light just changed on my end and it changed the whole picture around, but you guys will let me know if there's any major issues with like being able to see me. It could be the lighting that I have in here too. So those attachments, we can obviously see what things like anger and rage and all of that. Thank you. Okay, it looks good. Thank you. We can kind of, I mean, I think that we can think about that. So what's a way that we can resolve that? The way that we resolve that is through forgiveness. And that's one of the hardest things. Think about how many people pass away without forgiving the people who have supposedly harmed them, right? And we use mindfulness in order to change our perspective so that way we're not holding on to those things. And it sounds more simple than what it is, obviously. Sorry, my nose is running. It's so hot, it's so cold in this room from the AC. But this is easier said than done, just being able to forgive somebody and forgetting and letting it go. But just think about what I said as far as carrying death in your front pocket. Think about that, how anything could happen at any time. not just when you get older. I think people think of death and passing or transitioning as this thing that old people do, and that's not really the case. Just as many young people pass away as older people. Especially with what goes on in this country right now. With gun violence and just anything. Accidents are actually the leading cause of death for people, I believe, under 21, right? Is it under 21 or under 30? The leading cause of death is accidents, like just all accidents, not just car accidents. These things can happen at any time. So this is a nice motivation for us to practice these things right now. So eliminating rancor, eliminating vengeance, eliminating all those negative emotions through forgiveness, right? Seems like an easy thing. What if I told you that love was another attachment as well? What about love? Hmm. What about love? What about love? So think about that. Hey, King Simon, welcome, welcome. Yeah, what about love? What about releasing the attachment of love before your passing? So what does that mean exactly? How are you in a non-attached relationship that's also very loving, right? So I believe what the author is talking about in this part, and I'm not going to sit and read a long thing regarding the love part of it, as I did with the anger and the vengeance. King Simon, you just missed one of the best parts, but it's all good. We're gonna keep it good. We're gonna keep it interesting. But when we talk about love, we talk about think about it like this. There is the story in that same exact book that I mentioned, and I'll post it again, or I'll try to just pin that comment. Here, let me try to just pin that for y'all. Pin the message. Okay, there we go. Yay. Like I told you, it's my first live. All right. So, so when it comes to love, we talk about love. How could love keep somebody's spirit here? Well, I was just speaking to somebody about this, about how when people are in that process of passing and how they so worried about the people that are grieving over them. They're so worried about the people that are still here that are left behind that their spirit doesn't end up transitioning to the next realm because the love of the other people around them are holding them here, are keeping them here. So think about that. Let's take a minute, meditate on that. Think about how many people around you have passed. And when you think back now, because you're not in that situation anymore, but the people who may have, who weren't, who didn't pass when they were supposed to pass because love kept them here. And not necessarily, I don't even want to say love because I think love is very simplistic, but I think more of an obsession or a clinging to their spirit here. You've got family around you, you're in this space where you are ready to transition or people are ready to transition. I'll give you a couple of examples, but you can just imagine someone that is possibly ready to transition. They're in hospice, they're on their deathbed, whatever the case is, and there's people around them screaming and crying and going through it when that person really needs to be in that process of transitioning over because it's the reality. And of course we obviously have our human emotions and our human feelings, but it is in doing these things that we do keep certain spirits here because that person is so worried about how these people are going to be around them, who are there crying and grieving when they're in this process of transitioning over. So this is very sensitive. I'm not going to get too deep into that, but it is really sensitive. But some people do need to learn to let go when the time does come to let go. So I think that's more what they meant by love. Not necessarily like a romantic relationship or a marriage, something normal and natural like that. But he's talking about more of the way of like that clinging, that obsession that would hold somebody here in this realm. So it's so important that two people in a couple, when one of the people in that couple is ready to transition for whatever reason, maybe they're right there at the car accident, or maybe they're sick, maybe they had some terrible disease and they're in that process of transitioning over. It's so important that both parties kind of separate and allow their feelings. I mean, this is the hardest thing in the world to do, but I think when the time comes, hopefully my words will ring true, and hopefully you'll remember what I say about how that can hold somebody's spirit here. Okay, maybe I do need to talk about the hungry ghost realm and the different realms, and so that you can understand how you would not want to have your relative or your loved one stuck here with you as a hungry ghost. You ever heard that term, hungry ghost? Who's heard that term before? If you watch any type of Asian movie, anime, and they may have different words for this. Yes, the Tibetan book of the living and dying. I believe it's also mentioned in the Egypt books as well, about the hungry ghost realm. They just don't call it that. They call it something else. Of living dying says the same thing regarding allowing people to leave. Yeah. And now, obviously, we can say this. We're not in this position right now, right? It's so easy to say what we will and what we won't do. And I'm saying it. And of course, when the time comes, it's going to be a very tough thing to separate from anyone or anything, even my creatures, right? Even my pets. However, there has to be a separation, and there has to be something where we both have our dignity and say, okay, it's time for you to go. It's time for me to go. We will meet up again, right? If you believe in that karmic action, you believe in that cycle, that samsara, then you know that you are going to be returning here. So all right, so that's the love part, right? Even shedding love. Even shedding love. They said that one's mind should be as clear as the sky before they transition. And so should those around them. So that goes back to that Swedish death cleaning thing that I talked about right at the beginning, right? It's about clearing the space, clearing the mind. And when it comes to space and things, it's so interesting because I also had this conversation with somebody else. I can't remember who I was with, and we were talking about antiques. And I said, I don't deal with antiques. I don't want anybody's antiques in my house because those things have spirits attached to them. They really do. This show was actually supposed to be a Halloween special. That's what's so funny. This show was actually supposed to be a Halloween special. But anyway, when it comes to antiques, I don't play that. I don't want any of that in my house. Don't give me nobody's old jewelry. Jewelry is the worst. Jewelry is the worst for attachments. I don't even believe that rings should be passed on to daughters, especially if there was a lot of turmoil in a relationship between you and your husband. Don't pass any rings or jewelry down to your children. If you do, then maybe they just need to be cleansed properly. But as far as like just old items, just think about that. Think about the energies that are still attached to those items. And I'm not trying to get too esoteric with it. I'm really not. But that stuff really, really does. There's a whole section in that book about spirits attaching and clinging to items. We all know somebody that has had something, right? I had this a lot with my grandparents and old aunties and stuff like that. That vase that they had, not kidding you, there was a cuckoo clock, child. There was cuckoo clocks, like real cuckoo clocks. There was vases, there was jewelry, there was watches, and I said, "Oh, I don't care what that thing is worth. I don't want that in my house because I want to live I need my house clean. I need my spirit clean around me. I don't want things attached to me." And this is another thing about, cleaning the houses that you move into, cleaning them thoroughly, washing the walls, washing the floors, doing complete cleanings. Kick Simon, word up. No, I'm sorry. I don't, so get that cuckoo clock. Somebody came in and told my mother how much some things are worth. And I remember being a little girl and saying, that bird got something attached to it popping out. And we don't need that. So just think about those items. Think about that, about just getting rid of that stuff and letting it go, or cleansing it if it is going to be attached to anybody. Or if you acquire something, you see antiques that you really like and you want to have them, they need to be thoroughly cleaned. I mean, essential oil down. I mean, prayed over. Maybe you need to put some scriptures from whatever you are, whether you believe in Islam or Christianity or Buddhism, or you into the Orishas, whatever it is, you need to cleanse that thing down, because somebody's spirit is 100% attached to it. And the closer it is worn to the body, you said ammonia, ammonia, all of that, the closer it is attached to someone's body, i.e., jewelry, you really, really want to cleanse that. You may even want to bury it into some soil just to really clean it. Yeah, you may want to. Thank you, Cher. Afro Caribbean medicines. Thank you for sharing that. Please, if you guys have any resources, put them in there as well. Put them in there. Somebody said for what, frozen? What do you mean, like freeze it? Child, do what you got to do, because I'm telling you, some of the things that have happened that I've seen and that I have heard about having items in your house. I've heard that from every single religious tradition, about things that had to go and get out of the house. And it may not even be bad things. Sometimes it's just that person's spirit is just on it. Like, would you take somebody's old underwear? No, you wouldn't take somebody's old underwear or bathing suit, so you shouldn't also probably not take their old antiques either unless you thoroughly cleanse that thing out. All right, moving on. Moving on, now we go back to this Swedish death cleaning thing, right? We're gonna go back to this cleaning thing, and again, it shouldn't be such a morbid thing, but I know it sounds how it sounds. But think about that. Go through your house and think about really think about the burden and the negative karma that you are accumulating also in that other. Oh, the live is frozen. Oh shoot, I don't know why. Am I frozen to everyone? Oh, okay. All right. I'm not frozen. Okay. So maybe it's some people's, thank you. Maybe it's some people's computers or their okay, thank you. All right. So yeah, so just think about that. Think about how think about getting rid of that. And also think about clearing your space for the people who are going to have to come into that space after you. Think about your family first and foremost and how you need to let go of that stuff. Really let it go. King Simon, would you say you used some jewelry that was given to me and threw it in the river? Threw it in the river in New Orleans. Oh Lord have mercy. Cheap computers, all of that stuff, all of it. That contains somebody's spirit. Somebody's spirit was up in that computer, was up in there typing. They got their files saved. I don't want none of it. I don't want a dresser. I don't want a bed. I don't want none of that stuff. All right, so let's talk about money. When we talk about releasing tangible things, let's talk about money. Money, money, money. What happens? Oh God, and there's a whole section. Oh, that book has an entire section about money and about releasing your money and about why you should pass with nothing, why you should pass with absolutely nothing in your account. Um, I have a personal story about this, about my mother's mother, my grandmother, and how she lived as a miser, like a complete miser. You know, she lived as a miser. She was a very wealthy woman. However, she lived as a miser. If you saw her, you interacted with her, you talked to her, she would have you thinking that she had absolutely nothing at all. And when she passed, she was so attached to her money that she found a way to bury it inside of her house. And because she didn't want even us to have it, she didn't even want her children, her grandchildren to have it. She was so attached to that money. And I remember when she passed away, and that house was left to the family. The vibes in there. It was like, okay, whatever's in there can stay in there. And I think that it's you have to really think about how many people even say and verbalize out their mouth that they want to be buried with their money, and that they want their money to go here or there. For the next. Okay. Yeah, yeah. You know what? When people are so attached to their money and to their cash, think about how much good you can do, with your money. Now, how do we translate that now to being here? Let's always go back to that Swedish death cleaning example. Like, how do we do that now? What does that mean now? Well, we can practice that now by giving to charity, right? If we do have something extra that we can give to someone, and I know that's not an easy thing, for us working class people. However, if you do find yourself having extra money, we always think that we think with that methodology that we've got this death is in our front pocket, right? So you think about not emptying out your bank account. I think these rules apply more to people who have more means, like millionaires and billionaires, and things like that. Those are people that should start working on giving away everything now, right? But you think about you give clothes every month. Yeah, I just gave one, two, three, four pairs of shoes away today. I gave one pair to a friend and the other three went to Goodwill. But yeah, yeah, give away your clothing, go around the house, get rid of anything. Don't throw it away. Literally give it away to somebody who can use it, and your money as well. That doesn't mean go and empty out your bank account. It doesn't mean, just start throwing money out the window, like not coming to America. Who was doing that? Was it changing places? I can't remember. Somebody was going around throwing money out the window. Not like that, but it does mean start planning to about what you're going to do with your money. What are you going to do with your cash? When the time comes. And that stuff can start now. That planning can happen right now. That can happen at any age. Again, because this should be in your front right pocket. Anything can happen to us at any time. And we can start planning that stuff right now. We're building up karma. The whole purpose of all of this is not just to be not just to be a good person and just do this and make sure that the people around you have nothing to handle or take care of. Remember, we're doing this also because we are still in the process. Every moment of our lives, we're in the process of planning our next reincarnation. So think about that as well. I'm going to get to that in a moment, but we are literally working on our next iteration of ourselves. Our next avatar is coming soon, so we need to start working on that now. All right. So I guess I'll just go right into that. So again, we're moving from that premise. I pinned it, King Simon. I have it across the room. I just don't feel like getting it. I have it across the room and I also have it digitally. There is a PDF version. I believe that is available online as well. So if you Google the book's PDF version, I believe you can find the entire thing because what was shared with me originally was the PDF. Okay. So yeah, so check out that book is excellent. I literally read it over and over and over. I want to really understand what was in that. Okay, so we're working on our next iteration of ourselves, our next avatar that's going to come back here because again, we are in the cycle of samsara, we are in the cycle of reincarnation. So how do we work on that right now? Well, it's every single action that we are doing right now. It's everything that we're thinking, our intentions and everything that we're doing. So if you do have those moments and okay, I'm sick, all right, I don't have much longer to live, or you're just living your life as a normal person right now in your everyday skin and healthy as can be and young, you do all of that. Our mental energy should be spent on what our next reincarnation is going to look like. So I know you're probably saying, doesn't that depend on karma? It absolutely does. A lot of it does. I believe the figures in the book state something. It was either this book or my other scriptures book says that 75% of his karma, the other 25% is your own meditation. So there's these stories. I remember reading these stories from Thich Nhat Hanh, who's like a really prominent Buddhist figure, social justice warrior. He just passed away a couple of years ago. May he rest in peace. But I remember I remember he discussed some of those Buddhists, those Tibetan Buddhist monks that would sit in prison and just will themselves gone. Right? You ever heard about that? They would just be sitting in prison and they would literally just will themselves dead. They're like, okay, did everything I have to do here. Don't really want to be here anymore. Stuck in prison, so I'm out of here. So they would sit up and they would meditate for like 2 days and like will themselves gone, shut their body systems down, and they would be gone. Well, they were spending that time meditating and doing the mental architecture for what their next avatar was going to be. So they were planning everything from their hair to their skin color, their ethnicity, their family members, their mother, their father, their children, their siblings, everything to where they would live geography wise, right? What their houses would look like. So everything was planned down to a T to what they would look like. So remember that 75% is karma. You have nothing to do. I don't want to say you have nothing to do with that, but we don't know what that's going to look like. That's what I should say, right? You do have everything to do with that, but we don't know how that's going to come back immediately. But we can devote our mental energy because your mental energy is that power of manifestation that is actually going to be working for you. So, yes, in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, right? Yep, it's all the same. It's all coming from the same source. It's all coming from the same source. You see this thing's hair? What do you think that is? What do you think this hair is, huh? And I think this is Kuan Yin. This isn't Buddha. This is Kuan Yin, right? But you see here what this hair look like, huh? It's all coming from the same place. It's all coming from the same exact place. All the information it just branched off here, branched off there, right? People took things, borrowed things, moved it around, took it all over the planet. So we're all talking about the same things. So anyway, what we can do is focus our attention on what we want our next life to look like. And I'm saving the best part for you guys for last. But what we can do is think about how we want our parents to be. So if we had an issue with our parents here in this realm, in this iteration of ourselves in this lifetime, okay, so what do you want your next set of parents to look like, right? What do you want your next set of siblings to look like? Now, karma, whatever you've built up, whatever enemies you made, whatever personality traits that you need to work out, whatever lessons that you need to learn, that's going to figure its way into your new iteration, your new life. However, you can focus your meditation and we can get as close as possible to what you had dreamed about. So also think about it like this. Think about your ideal work situation or your ideal partner, right? You get closer and closer and closer. Karma has a lot to do with it, right? Your past actions, what you were building. However, we can also focus our attention and manifest what we want. That doesn't stop just because you shed this skin. It doesn't just stop. This is now going to continue on into the next cycle as well. So this leads me to the best part, and it's great because we're coming up on the 50-minute mark. Ah, this is the best. I can't wait to tell you about this. What is so wonderful is that the things that you learn in this lifetime can also be transferred over into the next lifetime as well. So, what does that mean? This is great news. Maybe you wanted to be a musician in this lifetime. Maybe you want to be a rock star. Maybe you want to be an actor. Maybe you wanted to be some kind of craftsman. Maybe you wanted to be some sort of a tech genius. Maybe you want to be some sort of mathematician. Maybe you wanted to be a writer. This is what they're saying, is that there is no stopping that you should be learning that right now, because what you develop, the seeds that you plant now will carry over, and you will find your way back to that instrument. You'll find your way back to that computer. You're going to find your way back to that craft. You're going to find your way back to that. Okay. So you start here, even if you're 90 years old and you'd like to come back here as some famous musician, or you just like to be really, really good at the guitar, at the drums, even if you're 90 years old, you start learning it now. You start learning that, you start planting the seeds, and you will pick that up. You want to know something? And I know I've told this story so many times because I've seen it so many times. I've seen it in my friends from Nigeria. I've seen this in my Chinese friends' households. I've seen this in my Filipino friends' households as well. Just make sure my battery is all good because I don't feel like getting up to go get the power cord. Okay. I've seen it in their households. When the baby is old enough to crawl, they place items in front of the baby. There's items in front of the baby. They put a hammer, could be many different things. They put an instrument as the second item. They put a book, the third item. Maybe they put a stethoscope as the next item. And they say whatever the baby crawls to is what that baby was meant to do, right? So maybe the baby's meant to be a contractor. Baby's going to go into medicine and be a doctor. Baby's going to go over here to find that ruler. He's going to be architect or engineer or something like that, because they believe that that child is bringing those skills from that previous life, and that they're going to naturally be drawn to what they want. How do you think they find out who the next Dalai Lama is going to be? You guys hear the story of how the Dalai Lama is selected? They put certain books in front of the baby, right? Once the baby's old enough to like point things out, right, or pick things, and they have the baby go to those books or those items. So the previous Dalai Lama passes away, and not just the Dalai Lama. This is for many other things as well, right? Different types of religious figures and things like that. They put the clothes here. The baby will naturally go to the clothes that are his, right? So this actually comes from Egyptian culture. This actually comes from ancient Egyptian culture. They're gonna say that baby's gonna find his old emperor robes again. That baby's gonna find exactly what he was or she was in that previous life, right? So if the baby is naturally inclined to go towards music, the baby's naturally inclined to go towards cooking or whatever the case is, the baby's gonna find the tools that they need. So that's why they say no matter how old you are, you should still be learning and picking those skills up now, even if you are at the last hour of your life and you want to come back. Maybe I wasn't so good in math, I really want to be better in math. Imagine we have the power to pick that up right now as adults, and we can continue that on into our next life. How fantastic is that? That gives us all hope. It's like, wow, this thing doesn't just end, it goes on, and there's something great about that, and there's something not so great about that, right? Because you feel like, oh gosh, I got to come back here again, I got to do this hard time again. Oh my gosh, I got to come back here, because it really is doing hard time. If you've developed some bad karma, then yeah, you got to stay here and do your hard time, right? But if you've developed good karma, then guess what? You've got heaven here on earth, and you have a great life and things aren't so bad, right? So there's heaven or earth here. Some people won't come. Well, yeah, that too, King Simon. Some people won't come back. If you've broken that cycle of samsara, you don't have to. Some people will be born back here as different types of animals and insects and germs and viruses and things like that. One day I'll get into the six realms and I'll explain all that to you, but it's a lot. That requires a whole other hour. Maybe that's the next video or one later on in the future. I got to do something ignorant for the next video because this was a lot of heavy stuff. So I may have to tone it down a little bit for the next video. But anyway, so yeah, some people won't come back. You're absolutely right. Some people will come back as gods or demigods and things like that as well. And again, this is not central to Buddhism at all. This is if you really understand Christianity, it's in there as well. It's in there. It's in a lot of the different scriptures and things like that. It's just that there are the most, I think, the most succinct records kept on this in Buddhism and in African spirituality. You just have to look in there and see that they're all talking about the same thing. Now, with that being said, and this is my last point, 5 more minutes here. With that being said, those habits that you build in this life right now, they're going to carry on and they're going to be, some people say they're magnified tenfold. I think that that was just a little sauce thrown in it just to kind of like, just to throw a little bit of spice on it. Now, that the same thing goes for your bad habits as well. The same exact thing goes for your bad habits. So if you were a smoker, if you were a drinker, if you had let's see, if you were a domestic violence type of a person, if you were a gambler, right, if you had addictions, if you use drugs and things like that, whatever your habit was here, it is going to get carried on into the next life. That is 100%. And now that type of thing gets evened out by genes and genetics. That's a whole other conversation. One of these days, I'm going to talk to you guys about genes and karma. It's a beautiful topic, beautiful karma. I don't know if I told you I used to teach genetics, and all I saw was karma there. All I saw was karma. All I saw was the law of return. All I saw was the conservation of matter. All I saw was physics there with that. But what I will say is that if you have developed the habits, bad habits here in this realm, they get carried on over to the next realm. So think about that. The good habits you create here get carried over, and so do the bad habits. They also get carried over as well. So you think about that. If you want to eliminate something, think about how hard it is to eliminate something in this life as far as smoking, drinking, drugs, gambling, sex addiction, whatever the case is, bad habits, nail biting, or whatever the case is, right? Littering, spitting, whatever it is, you might as well go ahead. It would behoove you to stop that now. That's just one less thing you have to worry about in your next life, in your next iteration, right? And same thing goes for those good habits that you build. So you start planting that seed right now. So that's what I have for you guys today. I'm finishing just under an hour. I'm so thankful. Oh my gosh. I'm so thankful. This was so great. Thank you all for being here. And I hope that I see you guys on the next one. And look out for the next videos. I'm going to talk about pretty much everything that I mentioned and some other good stuff too. Like I said, it's going to be a mixed bag. It's just going to be things I want to talk about. And that's it. All right. Also, if you want to be on the show to be interviewed, um, in lieu of paying a fee for the telehealth, um, just email me. Email info@edenintegrative.org. Oh, be sure to like and share. Like the video. Like before you go. Just like it. It doesn't cost anything to like. Like, and share this video. I'm gonna have it posted up after my first live. Oh my God, it was so good. Okay, go me. Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. I'll see you all soon.